right, so welcome to the Lunch and Learn today, My Schools Tucson Lunch and Learn, with the title of How to Navigate Kinder Options in Southern Arizona. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time to spend today with us. And we know how important setting our children up for success is to parents, and we want to make sure that we support and empower you so that you can make that happen. Now, while the title is Navigating Kinder Options, the information that we're going to share is really universal and applicable to all grade levels. And as we proceed through the presentation, please feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, comments. We'll either stop and answer right then and there, or potentially answer them at the end. But feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. So today, at some point, all parents get to a point where they begin to make important decisions about their child's education. And there will most likely be multiple times that your child's educational journey where parents are exploring schools, whether that's heading to kinder for the first time, middle school, high school transition, or maybe switching schools midway. So today we're going to go over some key concepts that we feel will empower families and help them make informed decisions, and help to prevent them from missing educational opportunities that might be game changers for their child's education. So we want to make sure you have access to the My Schools Tucson resources and know how to use them. And we'll walk you through some basic first steps to exploring schools. So my name is Scott Evans. I'm the Director of Family and School Engagement at a nonprofit called Community Investment Corporation. We have launched My Schools Tucson. Prior to my role here with CIC, I spent about 15 years as the Director of Counseling in Tucson's public and private high schools. I've been with CIC since 2021. Helping families engage with their schools and ultimately finding schools that fit their child's needs. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Zuara Ruiz.
Hi, I'm Zuara Ruiz. I'm a program manager with My Schools Tucson, and I also want to take this time to see if anybody needs Spanish interpretation. If you do, we can go ahead and join a separate break room where we'll give the presentation in Spanish. So if you need Spanish, please just throw it in the chat and we can throw you in a break room.
Okay, so we'll forge forward with English, and if someone needs Spanish, throw that in the chat and we can set up a break room. So before we dive into the school exploration stuff, just real brief, CIC is a nonprofit here in Southern Arizona. We're dedicated to financial empowerment of Pima County. Our mission is really access to the economy for all, regardless of background and socioeconomic status. So we work in 3 different areas here. We have home ownership, entrepreneurship, and education. Home ownership, getting first-time homeowners into their home for the very first time. Entrepreneurship, we have a small business loan programs where we get capital into the hands of those who might have a hard time accessing capital through traditional means. And then Zuara and I run the education pillar. And we believe that every child deserves to thrive at school, and that every parent deserves the tools to make that happen. So we launched My Schools Tucson maybe about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, as a way to connect and inform and engage parents in their child's educational journey. Our program's focus is primarily helping parents navigate the K-12 educational system with confidence, and really starting with the pre-K families and preparing them for their child's first step into kindergarten. My Schools Tucson essentially consists of a school locator. We built a school locator, which is much like Zillow for Pima County K-12 schools. So that's one thing that we offer parents. We also have a website packed full of resources to help families engage with their child's education, and with the emphasis being school exploration. And then we've recently launched direct one-on-one support for families. They can call, email, or Zoom. We can set up a time to kind of walk through and answer any questions that they might have. A little bit about why we're here. So, I mean, obviously, where you send your child to school is a really big decision, or at least it feels big and weighty for, especially for first-time parents. I know myself, I can speak from my experience, not really having a firm grasp of what my options were. It really felt daunting and really an important time for parents to engage. So I know there are lots of options in Arizona, and that can also feel intimidating and challenging. So we surveyed Arizona families and found that many parents and guardians lack the time and the resources and the knowledge to really know how to navigate that. And, I'm not from Arizona, so I absolutely felt that when I started looking for kinder for my child about 5 years ago. And just it felt like I didn't really know where to go and know how to support. But ultimately, our goal here is really to try to create more engaged parents. And we know research has shown that getting families engaged with their child's education can really significantly improve student outcomes. So that's really our bottom line goal. And we see school exploration as a logical first step to helping create more engaged families. So let's take a look at the educational landscape in Southern Arizona and why it can be challenging, and then we'll talk about how to navigate through that. So um, education has changed dramatically in Arizona since most of us were in school, most parents were in school. The landscape looks entirely different than it did 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. Most of us didn't grow up with charter schools, open enrollment. We were more or less confined to one public school that was in our attendance area, and perhaps a private school if you had financial means to afford it. But today, Arizona has more school options than any other state. And having more options can obviously have its advantages, but it certainly makes it more difficult for parents to research and access unbiased information. So I'm curious if you don't mind throwing in the chat, what type of school did you attend? And maybe you attended multiple, but me personally, I attended public district schools in California. So different state. Obviously, many, many years ago, I was in elementary school in the 70s, so it looked a lot different. But I'm really curious as to where other parents on this call have attended. So did you attend a charter school, public district school? Was it in Arizona? How familiar are you with the Arizona landscape? And we found that 60%, so throw that in the chat if you want to share, 60% of our parents are today, they're sending their child to a different school type than the one that they attended. So while that might not be your experience, there are lots of parents out there that are now facing decisions about their child's education that they might not be familiar with. I can speak for myself. We considered charter schools for my child. However, I was really unfamiliar with what charter schools were, how they worked, how they were different, and how to enroll my child in those schools. So for me, um, raising kids in Arizona posed a challenge, and I definitely had some knowledge gaps that I needed to address. Did anybody, I had not seen the chat. Did anybody chime in terms of where they attended?
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we had someone public schools in California and someone public schools in England
Okay.
and in
All
New
right.
Jersey.
Okay. So we have, obviously anything outside of Arizona is going to look a lot different than what we're dealing with here. Anything outside of the country, obviously, is going to look a lot different. We did have a charter school, some familiarity with charter schools, but more than likely, most of us grew up in a system where we had an attendance area school. That's kind of the common theme for parents these days. But occasionally we have parents that have had different experiences, and that can only add to their knowledge base. Um, so we're going to go over a few key concepts today that we feel are essential to make an informed decision. And without a full understanding, we know that parents are missing deadlines and missing opportunities that they might have had. So really, we're gonna talk about some different school options that are available here in Arizona. We're gonna explore charter schools and how those are different. And if you're interested in a charter school, how to apply, when to apply. Open enrollment is a really important concept in Arizona. We'll touch on school letter grades and also private school funding, which is really unique to Arizona in terms of what parents have access to. So Pima County offers a very wide variety of school options. Obviously, we have our public district schools. We have public charter schools. There are private schools, secular and non-secular private schools. There are homeschool options here in Arizona, micro schools. And even within our public system, there are options that might be unfamiliar to us. So we have magnet schools that exist. What are magnet schools? We have STEM schools. What does STEM mean? What does that represent? Different ways to educate kids, Montessori. And then there's the virtual and online and hybrid option, which really has expanded and grown a lot since the pandemic. Obviously homeschools were in existence, as were virtual schools, but the pandemic has really sped up that process and made that more of a viable option for families. So with all the options, it does make it challenging for families to figure out what is the right fit and how are they different. So let's talk about our system and how our current system works. So as I said, most of us grew up in a system where public district schools that you attended were based on your home address. So this is still true in Arizona. Each address has an assigned attendance area school and a district. So every address is assigned a public district and a public school. Nothing has changed there. That is sort of how it's been for a long, long time, and that is how it still is. However, what has changed is open enrollment in the state of Arizona. So, wrong arrow there. Open enrollment in Arizona means that you still have a neighborhood, an assigned neighborhood school that you are guaranteed enrollment at. However, you can apply to attend schools that are outside of your district or schools that are not your boundary school and in your current district. So you can move within your district and you can move outside of your district. For example, I live at Broadway and Craycroft. So my assigned elementary schools are Sewell Elementary, my middle school is Vale, and my high school is Rincon. So I can send my kids there guaranteed. I can show up the first day of school and they will be enrolled and I can guarantee myself that. However, I can also send my kids to a different TUSD school. So I can send them to Lineweaver or Wheeler. I don't have to go to Sewell. If I want to send them to a different school in the district, I can. And I can also send them to a district that is outside of TUSD. So I can send them to Marana. I can send them to Sunnyside. So my options are great. The catch here is that if you want to attend a school that's outside your boundary, you must apply, and you must apply before the seats fill up. And that's sort of where parents get stuck. They aren't sure when those deadlines are. So essentially, any school is open for you as long as there are seats. You can apply, and if the public school has a seat and they have availability, they must admit your child. So charter schools, and I don't know, Tina, maybe throw the district boundary locator and school locator in the chat in case there are families who don't know what their district is and what their school is. There's a real easy to use website. You can put your address in and it'll tell you what your elementary, middle, and a high school, your assigned schools are. And so charter schools. So in Arizona, there are roughly 20% of our public schools are charter schools. And we have more charter schools than any other state. So there are lots of them here. Charter schools are free. A lot of times parents don't realize that they are free public schools. They are privately run and operated, but they are free public schools. So there are no admissions or entrance tests. They can't test your child to determine if they are sort of capable or qualified. Private schools can, charter schools cannot. And the key thing here is that charter schools, they will set their own enrollment windows and deadlines. So they determine when they are going to open that window up for families to apply. There are no boundaries for charter schools. Unlike district schools that are determined by boundaries, charter schools have no boundaries. So you can apply to any charter school in the city. It does not matter where you live. The key piece is that you need to know when they are accepting applications. So, and charter schools can also turn you away. So if they're full, when you apply, they can tell you we don't have room, and you can ask to be put on a wait list at that point. So the other important piece here, when looking at schools and trying to assess your situation, are the school letter grades and rankings. So all public schools in Arizona receive a letter grade each year from the state. And this essentially tells a parent how that school is doing on standardized testing. So most of the letter grade is a measurement of academic performance and academic growth. So they're really looking at the standardized testing that are given to all public school students, and they are determining a letter grade based on mostly that, a small handful of other things, but for the most part, it's based on standardized testing. So on one hand, the letter grades are wonderful. They give parents a simple snapshot of how that school is doing. However, that letter grade does not capture the whole picture of the school. It does not include things like safety, diversity, extracurricular activities, culture of the school. So they're going to tell you how kids are performing, and that's essentially all that those letter grades are going to mean. So we believe that they're very important, and it's a very helpful tool for parents. We list them on our school locator. We make it very easy for parents to find that information. However, I want to caution that the letter grade should be one of many ways to learn about schools and to choose a school. So if you pull up a school on our My Schools Tucson locator, the letter grade's there. There's performance data. You can see how many kids, what percentage of those kids are reading at or above grade level. So we try to provide that information for families to see. And then lastly, in terms of key concepts, I think it's really important for families to understand how potentially a private education can be funded. So Arizona is unique. We were the first state to implement a universal voucher. It's called an Empowerment Scholarship Account, an ESA. First state to do so, and all Arizona students have access and can use roughly $7,500 per year on educational expenses and tuition. So if you're thinking about a private education and think you can't afford it, or that's been a barrier in the past, last year was the first year that they implemented the universal voucher, and that is an opportunity for families to go down that road if they so desire. The other way to fund a private education is through the Arizona Tax Credit Program. And so that is relatively simple, but essentially a way for families to also make private education free or reduce the cost of that. So on our website, we have a page that's dedicated to that, and it will take you to more in-depth information if you want to go down that road. And in a couple of weeks, we also have another webinar that we will talk specifically about the ESA and the tax credit programs that are out there. So now that we've talked about the key concepts, let's talk about some basic steps that parents should and can take when considering their school options. So step number one, really this is the starting point for all families, should be identifying your child and your family's needs. So you know your child obviously better than anyone. This really is the place to start. So there are lots of different factors and lots of different reasons why families choose schools or think schools will or will not work for them. But it's really important to make this step one for you and your family. With lots of different factors, there are going to be these are going to be different from family to family and from child to child. So what I prioritize is going to look entirely different than what you prioritize. My needs are going to be specific to my family and my child. They might be family-related needs, such as transportation. You know, how are you getting child to and from school, location of the school. They could be factors such as extracurricular programs, demographics of the school. Is it diverse? Lots of people care about the diversity of the school. Some people care a lot about test performance in academics and the school letter grade and how students are performing. For me, my family, it was location was driving the bus. We couldn't really transport across town. That wasn't an option for us. We needed an aftercare program that we trusted, that was on site and with 2 working parents. It's hard for us to get there when school's out, so we needed that. And extracurriculars were important for us. So this is really where you need to start, and you really think about what is it that my child might need in terms of a learning environment. Are there special needs, and what is it that our family needs to make this work? So I'm curious if you want to throw that into the chat, sort of what factors are our highest priorities for you all. We did a survey, Arizona, and throw that into the chat, and we can talk about that. The Arizona parent survey that we did, we found for elementary families, the most common responses for factors that were important for them were, number 1 was safety of the school. Number 2 was location and transportation logistics. That seems to drive the bus for most families in terms of being close to home. Diversity was up there, and as was reputation of the school. So academics did not make the top 4. So other things are driving these decisions for families. So has anybody want to share what their factors are that are most important to them?
We have location, diversity, and extracurriculars.
Right. And so, you know, this is really the time for, if it's 2 parents making a decision or guardians, to really sit down and give this some thought, because this is really going to be sort of the launching off point for you as you start to explore and identify schools that might work. So the school types that are here, we have public district schools, TUSD, Sunnyside, all of those schools, Marana, Vail. We have 15 districts in Pima County. We have public charter schools, as I said, lots of charter schools to choose from. We have private schools, virtual online options have really grown. We have the homeschool movement and micro schools. So all of those are potential options. Micro schools are essentially a sort of a newer modern version of the one-room schoolhouse. So if you're looking for something that's flexible, personalized learning, and a student-centered approach with really small classes, micro schools, that's what micro schools are sort of filling that need. So similar to homeschools, and I think that's sort of where they were born from, but another option that's sort of taken off post-pandemic. So as we start to look at schools, we hear charter schools, we hear district schools, but it's important not to make generalizations. Not all district schools offer the same things. Not all charter schools offer the same things. So, for example, there are some charter schools that offer free transportation. They offer free and reduced lunch. They offer free full-day kinder. And there are other charter schools that do not. So I found this out the hard way. We had to move our child from a district school to a charter school during the pandemic. And I had no idea that I was about to pay for kindergarten. So kindergarten is free at district schools for a full day. And the charter school that we ended up at, they charged for half-day kinder. So understanding sort of what that school is and is offering is really important. Homework policy, sometimes we don't think about it as an important thing, but when there's a homework policy and all students have 30 to 45 minutes of homework as a kindergartner, that means parents have that duty each night to make sure that that gets done. So On one hand, we enjoyed having that, but on the other hand, it was like, oh my gosh, like we'd pick up our kids 6 o'clock, we do dinner, now it's homework time, and it's, there is really not much time in the evening. So really figuring out what that school's requirements are going to be and what they have to offer, and not just making generalizations based on charter school or district school or private school. So as you research, obviously there are a variety of different ways and methods to do that. But number one, look online. You can go use My Schools Tucson, use the locator, go to the school's website, go to the district's website, do what research you can from your own home. Word of mouth, while it seems odd, and it's really probably the most common form of research that parents do. And it's 100% natural for us to care about what other humans think. So Yelp would not exist if we didn't care. So asking friends, family, 100% acceptable. I would say that relying on just one of these means of research is poor practice. So to choose a school just based on family friend feedback is really not the way to go. So doing your own research, talking amongst your circle, and most importantly, touring the school and getting on that campus and asking really important questions. So touring schools, I would dare say that's probably the most important thing that you as a parent can do. It's your ace in your pocket. It's going to give you insight that you cannot gather from a website or a brochure or a neighbor. And it's going to give you the opportunity to ask really good questions. And, I wish I would have done more of this when I was looking into schools. It's amazing to me how many people do not. And I'm ashamed to say that I was one of those parents that, I dropped my child off at an elementary school without really doing the proper amount of homework and without ever touring the school. So, I think about it and I think, gosh, if I'm buying a refrigerator, I'm doing hours of homework at night. I'm researching that purchase. We wouldn't buy a car or rent a house without taking a tour or a test drive. Why we feel it's okay to drop our kids off at a school without really getting in there and seeing that. It's beyond me, and that's absolutely something that I want to change, and I want to emphasize that. So touring a school would be the tops of my list in terms of how to really figure out if that school might be the place for your child. And in terms
I
of,
just want to do a time check. It's about 1 o'clock. So
okay,
just so you know, that's where we're at if anyone.
okay, sounds good. We have about 3 or 4 more slides, and we will be done. So I appreciate that, Tina. And so on our website, we have a list of questions to ask on school tours, because I know many parents, they might not know quite what to say when they get in there. They might not know what to look for. So we've put together a list of questions to ask, whether it's about academics or extracurricular or homework policy or special education. We've compiled a list of questions for parents to have that to look over before they take their tour. And then there's the enrollment timeline. This can be a real barrier for families who are unaware of sort of when enrollment needs to happen and when they need to get their applications in. So the key piece is that the application windows typically open in November. They open in the fall, and they will close whenever that school determines that window is going to close. So I know TUSD was November 1st to January 15th if you were applying for open enrollment. You can apply after that date. That doesn't mean you won't get in, and you should apply, but schools set their own cutoff deadlines. So January, February is typically when the districts start to close their open enrollment dates. So I would absolutely make sure that whatever schools you are considering, that you inquire with that school, whether it's charter school or district, and find out, when do I need to get my information to you in order to be considered. So essentially today, I mean, the key takeaways, if you get nothing of this, I really want to emphasize touring your school and asking questions. The other thing I want the takeaway to be is that you understand the policies that are here in Arizona. That's going to expand your options and allow you opportunities that that you might not have been aware of. So the open enrollment deadlines, how open enrollment works if you want to attend a school that's outside your boundary school. And then we're beyond the 1 year in advance for this year if you're looking for a school for this year, but typically 1 year in advance would be sort of best practices is when to start to give you enough time to do research, ask questions, tour schools, and make your decision. And lastly, so we are here to help. We set up a direct support line. We offer free bilingual one-on-one support, whether that's phone, Zoom, or email. We're here to answer whatever questions you might have as you get going down this road. So I want to encourage you to use that or share that with anybody in your circle that might be going through this process and needing some support. And lastly, I just want to say thank you. I know Tucson has many wonderful school options and educational opportunities, and we encourage you to really do your work, do your homework, get engaged in that process, and that will give you the best opportunity to find a school where your child can thrive. So in my mind, there really is no better gift that you could ever give your child than engaging in your child's education. That's going to give them the best chance for positive outcomes, both socially and academically. So I appreciate your attention, and obviously we will stay on for any questions that you might have. We'll stay on for as long as that's needed. And if you don't want to participate in that and you still have questions, I would say shoot us an email or call us, and we can set up a time to talk. So thank you very much for being here today.